Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's GP Tips and Tricks webinar, SSRS Overview. I'm Megan Turco, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we jump in, I'm going to briefly go over how to use your webinar console. The orange arrow on the right side of your screen will let you toggle the control tray open or closed, and at the bottom of that control tray, you'll see a chat window. Please feel free to submit your questions at any time throughout the webinar via the chat function. Also, on your GoToWebinar console, you should see an area for audio settings. If you're calling in through your telephone, please choose the Use Telephone option. Alternatively, if you're using your computer speakers, please select the Use Mic and Speakers option. And additionally, I would like to note that today's webinar is being recorded. We will send out the slides as well as a link to the on-demand recording within about 48 hours. So definitely keep an eye out for that email if you're interested in viewing the webinar again or sharing it with any colleagues who might have missed today. And with that, I would like to introduce today's featured speaker. We have David Mahard with us today, who is a senior manager on Armanino's client management team. David leads the Dynamics GP upgrade and installation team and manages the support desk for the Dynamics GP and CRM, Intact, Adaptive Insights, and Business Intelligence service lines here. His interest in pulling information from Dynamics GP and other databases has led to his work developing SSRS reports for customers and the internal Armanino team as well. It's great to have you here today, David, and with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to you.
Thanks, Megan. I really appreciate that. Today's session is really about introducing folks to SSRS. That could be a new term to you, or it could be an old term to you. Undoubtedly, I potentially will be talking too elementary to some people, and for others, we may go over your head. And I apologize for that in advance, because I know that SSRS can be a very tough thing to do a presentation on, because the audience can be so spread out as far as their original knowledge level. But we're going to get into it, and I want to introduce it to you as a tool that you can use in your Dynamics GP environment particularly, and in any SQL database that you may have in your environment. What we're going to learn today is, what is SSRS? What is it? And then finally, what we're going to say is, what can it do for me? We want to talk about that because it can be an extremely powerful tool. I'm very excited about it, and so I just want to share that excitement with you. We'll also discover what is required to do a report, because there are tools out there that you can use to assist in creating reports. We're going to use the free tool that comes with SQL and with the Development Studio tool that would be able to utilize for building fresh reports. And then I'm going to demo actually a report, so that we can sort of see behind the scenes exactly what's going on, and then we can see as well what the final output might look like. So let's take a look. I amusingly put this a match made in heaven, but it really can be, folks. SSRS and GP together are present a very, very valuable tool. And I want to get you excited about it, just as I'm excited about it. What is it? Well, SSRS is an acronym. It stands for SQL Server Reporting Services. So you can take that home to your spouse and you can say, hey, I know something you don't today, and you can spout that out. But SSRS is just a quick little way. It's not even that quick, to be quite honest, but it's SSRS is SQL Server Reporting Services. We also see it referred to as SRS for SQL Reporting Services for folks who don't like the double S. So that's just the way it is. It's an external reporting tool. So what I mean by external is that it's outside of GP. It's a tool that you can use to go against any SQL database, and GP, of course, has a SQL backend. But if you have other databases that are SQL-oriented, you can reach over and touch them. You can either report solely on that tool, or if you have a common link between the two, in terms of some field that is common between the two systems, you can actually tie records from GP to records in some other system. So that can be a very, very nice thing to do. It's also a delivery mechanism, because SSRS reports can be subscribed to, which means that we can have a particular report show up in our inbox every Monday morning at 8 o'clock, for example. We can set up a recurring appointment, essentially, where this report will run and it will show up in my inbox. That's pretty nifty. Another way to do it is to have these reports stored out on a file share someplace, so that the output, when the report runs, it'll just overwrite itself or increment a file name if that's the case you want to do, and it'll write itself to a file share someplace on your network, so that when you come into work and you know the reports are scheduled to run on this particular day, you can just go to that location on your file share and you're good to go. It's there, it's waiting for you. There are multiple output options, and this is one of the powerful things about it. You can output an SSRS report to be a Word document, and I've done that with my statements of work and my master services agreements. And in fact, I can show you what that looks like. It's pretty nifty. If you have a form that you want to output that is just very formalized, and you can output it, you want it to be consistent every single time, and you just need to drop in a few variables, SSRS is a great way to build that particular document. SSRS can be exported to Excel very, very easily. It's a cool way to get data out of GP, for example, when you have a smart list that you like, but it doesn't quite have all the columns you need, and the columns that you really want aren't available in the selection list. Well, we can build an SSRS report that can output it to a grid and then export to Excel in a heartbeat. And so it could be pretty nifty if you want to get a report out into an Excel format. You can also do XML. You can do comma separated files. There are just a handful of ways to do this and I'll show that to you, so that you can see the types of ways that you can output the report. You can include bar charts, you can include pie charts, you can include graphs. There are all sorts of different visual options that you can stick in here. You could build a dashboard if you wish out of SSRS. And coming back to the external reporting tool bullet, what that means is that your non-GP users can utilize these reports. So you can get through permissions. Again, it's all permission based. You can control who can see what report, but more than that, you can deliver GP information to non-GP users, and then you can even make it look pretty and all sorts of different ways to present your data to folks who maybe aren't used to an accounting application. So what can I do for you? We've talked a little bit about it, but let's talk about it a little bit deeper. It's Excel friendly. Now, I know that a lot of you love your GP reports. You love your GP trial balances, and you love your aging reports. But if you ever tried to dump that to Excel, you become very, very frustrated very, very quickly. So you might look to SSRS as a way to alternatively deliver that data, because you can dump SSRS data into Excel in a heartbeat. It's just a matter of exporting. So you just have to build the report the way you want in terms of rows and columns, just like an Excel spreadsheet. And then at the end of the day, you can dump it to Excel. So if there's anything that, any report in GP that you've always wanted, but you've never been able to get into a nice Excel format, then SSRS is the way to go. The automated distribution part is lovely. It really does work nicely. We do our invoices that we send our customers. We do billing reports in SSRS, and that's maybe why you've seen them change look and feel over the last several months, as we've tried to refine that process and make it even look prettier. But our invoices, all of our data that's pasted into our invoices from consulting here is from SSRS. We take it from there, we dump it to Excel, then we paste it into your invoices. So it works very, very nicely. And that's against a database that has nothing to do with GP. That's our visual practice management software here at Armanino. And that's a SQL-based system, so we can utilize SSRS for that. Those reports are run on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of every month, and they just show up on a file share someplace, and we just know that after the 3rd, we can go get it, and we can start using them. You can create reports that are currently unavailable in GP. There are things that GP just doesn't give you. I mean, I wish GP was an all-inclusive and the perfect accounting system in terms of reports, but it isn't. And so there are many things in GP that you would like to get information on. Some examples. Maybe we want to see, I can show you this here in a few minutes, what I call the fixed asset cascade report, which will project out into the future what your expense will be for your fixed asset depreciation on any given period in the future. And so that would be a pretty nifty report to have in Excel, and so that I can give you. I've also done a report for one customer who has to do recalls. So GP has a reasonably good on-screen system for being able to show what invoices, for example, were associated with a particular raw material. This particular customer does food, so let's say they had a bad batch of eggs or something and they needed to trace it back to that particular lot in their inventory, and then they want to find out how many invoices were sold using that particular lot. So we built an SSRS report that does that exact thing, which says, hey, you give me the raw material that you're talking about in terms of the raw material and the batch that it was. I'll tell you every single invoice that used that particular batch. And on top of that, I'll give you the address and the contact person for that particular customer. So that was a pretty nifty little report that they found useful. You can deliver it via email. We talked about that a moment ago. And this is a huge thing for folks who like to have reports just show up on their inbox. And so you devise a report, you subscribe to it, and then it runs and it shows up just a matter of seconds after it runs. It's going to show up in your inbox. So that's pretty cool. What is it that you need to do SSRS? Well, you need three different things. You need a data source, which is essentially it's a database, and we have to build that data source in SSRS in the report builder tool to link over to the database so that we can link to any particular database that you want to go to. So that is called a data source. And any report can have any number of data sources that you want. So you can call upon different databases if you wish, all within the same report. Then there's what we call the data set. A data set is the result of an underlying SQL query. So at its core, SQL Server Reporting Services requires a SQL query. So now I'm just going to warn you right now, this is where I start to lose people, but I don't want you to get lost because I want to just show you how easy it can be. And then if you don't do it, maybe one of your IT folks or somebody on staff who's really intrigued with SQL would be able to help you here. So a data set is required. Obviously, we need to be able to query a database, get some data back, and then we essentially use that data set as the data for a particular report. You can introduce parameters. In fact, parameters are filters usually, so that you can, let's say you want to do a date range from show me all your payables transactions from this date to this date. So you would have a start date and end date filter, and you would select those, and then your data set would be refined to filter down to just those things. Or if it matches a particular value, so you can just put in a value in there. One of the ones I'll show you here in a moment is location for fixed assets, for example. So show me all the fixed assets for a particular location. You can also use parameters as report triggers. For example, I had built a sales report at one point showing all the sales for particular items in a particular inventory. And so we were able to do it January through December, and we'd be able to show all the sales that happened within that particular date range. And if you did not want to see the January, February, March data, we could hide that data in the report based upon what your selection is in a parameter. So you can use it as a trigger to display and not display things, or to display detail or not to display detail, or you can use it as that type of flag. So parameters really do play an important part, and there's a lot of different types of parameters. You could do a drop-down list and be able to select one item. You can do what we call a multi-select, which is a drop-down list that has checkboxes next to the values, And you can just put X's in each one of the ones that you want, or you say select all if you want to see all of it. And that's pretty cool. Or you can just have a string of data. You can have a date, you can have a numeric value. You can set up your parameters pretty, they're pretty versatile. So I think that that could be very useful. So I think at this point, Brian's going to turn it over to me. Here in a second. Let me get in here. Okay, let's show my screen. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at an image. It's a VMware image of a GP 2015 environment, but I'm looking at the SQL Reporting Services page. In this case, SQL Server Reporting Services is by default displayed to you on a web page. So that's how you would by default go to get it. So if you want to run a report on demand, you would go to this web page, and then you could go to, let's say if I go into the TWO database here, which is Fabricam, it has some subfolders. So if I want to go in here and I go into sales, this is going to show me all the SSRS reports that come out of the box with GP. So if you're upgrading, you're going to get these. We're going to definitely deploy these for you. And so all of these reports exist. They don't cost you a dime. They're all part of your package. So this is a list of some of the reports. You're going to see titles here that are very similar to your GP reports, because that's really what they are. They're sort of mimicking what you can do in GP, but keep in mind that these reports are available to non-GP users as well as GP users. And the charts and KPI function is a tool to give you bar charts and line charts and gauges and different things that come with GP out of the box. So all of these different types of things are all out of the box from GP. Let's go back to the home, and an example I might be is, let's go to fixed assets right here. So if I want to see, let's say I want to do a retirements report. How many fixed assets are retired? If I just click on it, it's just going to run. In this case, there are no parameters, so I'm not telling it from a date range that I want to look at. It's just a list of all retirements that are in the system. It shows various values of different things that were collected over the time. We have place and service date, how long it was depreciated, when the retirement date was, as well as the original life, how much life was left when it was retired or sold, or because a retirement doesn't mean that you're giving up on it. It could mean that you've sold it. And then how much did you make on it? It'll do that. It'll tell you what the net book value was at the time of retirement. And all this particular data is presented for you, and it's just a quick, easy report. We talked about exporting to Excel. Here it is. We just go up here to the export menu, and I can do it to XML, CSV, PDF. I didn't mention that one. You can just export this directly to a PDF. You can do it to a web archive HTML. You can do it to Excel, a TIFF image, or Word. So all of those things are available to you. So that's a very simple little thing. If we want to see additions, we can run that same report. Here's an example of show me all the assets that were added in, let's go 1/1/2016 through, let's go 12/30/31/2017. Of course, anybody who knows Fabricam knows that these dates are Fabricam dates. And I'm using the internal book. That's all I've got AMT and a federal book as well. I just want to look at the internal book. This is an example of a multi-select menu where I could select any one of these, or all of them, or any just one of that type of book. And then I view the report, and I'll get a set of data. And this is a presentation. It's a very simple presentation that I'm doing it for this book. And here's a class ID, and then here are the assets under that particular class for any additions that were made in that time frame from 1/1/2016 to 12/31/2017. So that's an example. And again, if I want to dump it to Excel, let's try that real quick. It's just going to dump to Excel. It's going to say, hey, what do you want to do with that? Let's just open it. And it should open Excel and show you the data. So here it is in Excel, and I could do whatever I want with it then. And many times folks will take this raw data that could come out of SSRS and then use it externally in Excel in any number of ways that you can put your mind to via Excel. So that's pretty nifty. I did want to show you one of our internal things. So let me go here. I'm going to go to our report manager. This is our internal one here at Armanino. So when I'm helping you with an upgrade, for example, I might go to this project estimating tool, and I'm trying to figure out how much would an upgrade cost. So we can do this real fast. I've got a ton of parameters in here. So I'm just going to go test, or I'm going to go one company in this case. Total users, they have 25 users in GP. They are on 2010 SP3. They're going to do that. They're going to do that. Good, good, good. Do we have any third-party products? Let's see. How many of you have McCorma? Let's go with McCorma. And we can have up to 4 here, but I can always add more in the final report. I'm going to do 8 hours of MR training because we are doing a conversion to MR in this case, and I'm doing some system admin training, that sort of thing. And with McCorma, I might need 2 hours of testing with McCorma. So I view report. There's my report down here. And I have various pages that I can go to, and I can call it up. But what's really important for me is that I've dumped it to Excel. So let's just open it up real fast. So it's going to dump in some default values that I have on this particular setup. So this would be a project plan that you might see in some of your upgrade proposals. And then I'm going to refine these numbers to better match exactly what we're going to do. So I can do all sorts of different things. And then if I go to my Design and Configure tab, I have a whole bunch of things. So I've got a database that I've created that has each task associated with an upgrade. I've given it a set of minutes, and then it multiplies, for example, by the number of companies I might have. So if I had 2 companies, it would show upgrade, it would be 2 here. 2 times 30 would be an hour, and then I would make adjustments here to come up back over to my project plan. So that's just an idea of something that you can utilize SSRS to help you develop. Let's take a look at one more thing here. So I wanted to show you real fast, like a MSA, for example. So we do MSAs for our new customers. So let's say we do this. And I'm just going to select any old customer that I've got in my list here. How about 21 minute fitness? That looks good. And this is going to be June 24, 2015. 2 variables, that's all I need. And I hit view report. It will create my form-like MSA that all I have to do to use it is to dump it to PDF. So I'll just do that real fast, and I'll open it. And there's my MSA. I just save it and send it over to the customer. It's a done deal. So that's a nifty way to get those types of things into a Word form. So you can actually dump it to Word if you wanted to. So if we did this to Word instead of PDF, what would it look like? Let's just do it. So I'm going to enable editing. There it is. So it shows up, you'll find that in SSRS Word reports, it shows up in a table, in essence, inside your document. So that's just, you're just getting used to working with the table inside the document. But it's all there. And what did I do is I dropped the customer name is between Armanino and 21 Minute Fitness. So you can see that I dropped in that value as a variable on this particular cell here in this report. So that's pretty nifty. So let's go ahead and move over to a polling question that I've got, Brian, for you.
Thanks, David. So we'll get that polling question up just momentarily here on your screen. Sorry about that. Give us just one moment here. There we go. So it should appear in about 2 seconds here. So our question for today is, which of the following is not a required element for an SSRS report? Data source, data set, or parameter? So we'll go ahead and give everyone a few moments here to get their answers in. It looks like we've got a good group so far who's voted. And of course, if you do have questions for David, we will probably get to a few of our questions for Q&A. Feel free to type those in that chat window. It looks like we've got just a little bit over half of everyone voted, so I'll give you a few more seconds and then we'll close the poll. And we'll go ahead and close the poll in 3, 2, 1. And I'll pass it back to you, David, to chat about the results.
Great. So within a SSRS report, you have to have a data source. Obviously, you have to have a database that you're going to go against. And you do need to have a data set. You have to have data to put on the screen. And so the parameter part is the one that is optional. We saw a report there in the beginning, the FA retirements report, which just showed you all the retirements, didn't have any date parameters or date filtering going on. And then we had other reports that did have filtering. So parameters would be the correct answer in this particular case. So let's wrap things up. I want to make sure you take away this, that you can present GP data to non-GP users using SSRS. It can be a wonderful way to get information to them in a subscribed form where you can get a subscription going and have it show up in their inbox, for example. You can report against any SQL data source. It doesn't have to be just GP. If you have anything else that is in SQL, you can report on it. Subscriptions for automated delivery, very, very important, whether you can do it to email and show up in your inbox or you have it stored on a file share someplace. All of this is based on SQL queries. And so the thing that I wanted to stress around here is that SQL queries are not hard. They can be daunting if you're not used to them, and I admit that. But there are plenty of what we call views in GP databases, for example, that give you most of the data that you need right there. You can call upon these views and just do some filtering on dates, for example, and you get all the transactions that are within a certain date range. And the views are sitting there in your GP database ready for you to use. And so I'd encourage you to look at that.
Thanks, David. So we do have time for just, I think, our main question actually that came in has to do with which version of GP the SSRS reporting can function with. So David, is this just for 2015 or can you use it on previous versions as well?
Well, it's interesting because SSRS is it's GP agnostic. It doesn't care what version you're on. All it cares is that you have a SQL database. And so you can go back to version 7 or even before sometimes in GP and you can report against it. So it's totally independent of your GP version. You just have to have SQL with SSRS. It really became into its own in SQL 2008 R2, and it's gotten much better in SQL 2012, and then again in SQL 2014. So I would encourage anybody who has SQL 2008 R2 and above to definitely jump into this.
Great, thank you. So I do know that we got a few questions regarding sort of the starting point and where to find, sort of where to start when you're looking for the reporting capabilities. Can you shed a little light on that, David?
Well, where to start, as I indicated, the starting place for me, and every time I'm doing a GP report, is I start with the views that are already exist inside the GP database. There are tons of views about accounts, customers, transactions, line items, POs. All these different views are already predefined in GP. So you don't even have to worry about tables. You don't have to go against the RM00101 table. You can just go against customers, which would be the master customer table. So I highly encourage you to start with the views, and then if you need to go to a specific table for a specific reason, then we can help you get figured out on what table to go to.
Thank you. So I know we got a few other questions in there, but we are just about out of time for today. So if you do have additional questions, feel free to contact David directly, and his contact information is up on the screen. And as I mentioned, we will definitely be sending out the slides and the on-demand recording. So if you have more specific questions, or if we didn't get to your question today, we'll definitely be able to follow up with you offline to get you those answers. Thank you to everyone who attended our webinar today, and of course, thank you, David, for being our featured speaker. As you exit, there will be a quick survey. Definitely, please let us know how you felt about today's webinar, and thank you, everyone. Have a great day.